Greetings, Internet. Welcome once again to another episode of HeiseNerd Speaks, the program where I stand in front of a microphone and give some insight onto some things that I've heard about and give some opinions. On the agenda for today, we are going to talk about TV reboots and sequels. We are going to talk about some games that I picked up on the Steam sale and my thoughts on them. And we're also going to talk about my top 3 movies of 2017 that I had seen. Alright, so starting off, I wanted to talk about, heard an advertisement or a news story today about the fact that they are they're rebooting, I don't know if they're rebooting or kind of just restarting, the TV sitcom Mad About You with Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt. And I sat there and thought about that, and I thought, just going through my head, I was like, this isn't the only other one of these that I'm hearing about. I know that they just restarted Will and Grace again, and I know that they are going to be starting Roseanne again, and I've seen some teasers for that. And I'm a little torn on this. If a show's done, I've never heard of this. Like, it should be done. I mean, it's kind of weird to come back, especially for some of these that are considerably old. I mean, I know that we're playing on nostalgia here, but I mean, nostalgia's only going to get you so far. How many seasons are you going to get out of, people's nostalgia? I mean, I know, I guess another example and to talk about is Fuller House, which was a sequel series to Full House that I grew up with in the 80s. And I was excited a little bit about that. And I watched a few episodes of the first season. The rest of my family's watched more of it, but I couldn't really get into it. It's just as cheesy, as it was back then. And it just doesn't land as well when you're an adult, I guess, to me. And I get it. I mean, there's probably enough people that are watching. So, I mean, it's made its way to three seasons on there now. And with the conclusion of this last season, it apparently looks like the adults, the original adults, like Danny, Joey, and Jesse and them, are coming back when they were only doing cameos, throughout these first couple seasons. So that bothers me too, because I'm thinking, so what was it? Let's have an experiment to see if this show takes off the ground, and then, now we can be on the show because we can make something out of this. And I don't know, that kind of bothers me. I don't know. I get the thought running through my head of these people that ran these shows and the actors and stuff thinking, well, we made all this money back in the day making these shows, and we've blown through that, so we don't have any other good ideas, so let's just recreate what we did before. I don't know. I'm just a little torn about it. I guess time will tell. I don't intend to watch Mad About You or Will and Grace. I never really got into either of those. I might pick up Roseanne and see how it goes. I mean, if anything, John Goodman is fantastic in just about anything that he does, so I mean, that probably should be enough to kind of make it pretty decent. It's really weird how that show's gonna start off anyway, just because the way that the series ended was really odd. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical about how that's gonna go. So moving forward. Let's talk about some games that I picked up on the Steam sale, the winter sale this week. Had a little bit of extra money for Christmas and stuff, and thought I'd get myself a few games that I was kind of looking at, and I'd like to talk about them. So, first up, I picked up the game Dungeons and Dragons Chronicles of Mystara. What this game is essentially a port of 2 classic arcade beat-em-ups from the 90s, Dungeons & Dragons Tower of Doom and Dungeons & Dragons Shadow over Mystara, which are probably two of the best arcade games that I ever played. Um, there's a pretty big nostalgia factor there for me too. I played these games. I remember them vividly playing in the arcades when I was staying with my grandparents um, for a week or so. We would go and just blow quarters out at the arcade, and that'd be one of the games that we played. I thought it was kind of unique in the fact that it it's a beat 'em up, but it kind of has a lot of the D&D elements of the magic spells, and the monsters still are the same, and you level up and everything like that. So I mean, it's pretty cool. I will probably be streaming Tower of Doom pretty soon. I think it would just be kind of fun for people to kind of get an idea and watch that. So that's definitely a good one. Um, Next, I picked up Cuphead. Now, for most gamers, people are going to know what Cuphead is, but for those that aren't, Cuphead is a run and gun, basically kind of a boss rush game where you'll fight just really difficult boss fights to progress through the game. There are run and gun levels too, but it has a very unique art style. It's basically modeled after the 1930s animation of that era, particularly the Fleischer era. So you're gonna get a lot of things that look like stuff from like Felix the Cat, Betty Boop, stuff like that. If you want to kind of visualize it, that's kind of the art style, and the musical style also follows that, very jazzy, horn driven, and it's just a really great soundtrack. I really like this game. It's difficult as all get out, but it's the kind of difficulty that will keep you playing the game. Particularly because it keeps track of how far along the boss fight that you are currently in after you die. You'll see, oh, I made it like 3/4 of the way through, and that's just like motivation to say, okay, I can get further than that. I can do this. So I mean, it's a really motivating kind of difficulty, rather than you'll have games where the difficulty is just like, okay, this game's just broken and there's no good reason why I should be playing this game. But where this one is, it's the kind that motivates you to just keep going. Just like, for instance, I probably tried 24 times one level to be able to get through it. But don't get me wrong, I was getting furious every time, but it's the kind of, I don't know, it's the fun kind of furious, which is, I know that's weird to say it that way, but that's kind of just what this game is. It's definitely one, if you're a retro game fan, it's definitely up your alley if you want to get this, and you can get it for under $20 most any time, so I would recommend it. Next one up, and this one might be my personal favorite out of the ones that I picked up. This is the one I picked up was Hollow Knight. This one is it's a not really open world, because it's side scrolling. It's very similar to the Metroid and 1990s, late 90s Castlevania style, where it's open exploration, but progression is made through different items and stuff. Like, to get further into the game, you have to have a specific item to get to this particular location to get an ability to move forward, and things like that. It's a really good game. I like this one too because it kind of has some elements from modern stuff kind of dipped in there too. Like, if you die, you lose all of the money that you've accumulated, and you lose part of your like magic meter. Your soul meter is what it's called in this. But if you die, you lose part of that, and you lose all your money, and you go back to the last place you rested or saved. And what basically occurs is you have to go back to the point where you died, and defeat it's like a shadow of some sort, and you get your money back and stuff. So I mean, it kind of pulls from Dark Souls, and that series kind of in the same kind of way, which is kind of interesting. It's definitely a more difficult game, I feel, than the Metroid and Castlevania games. I don't know, maybe not overly more difficult. Maybe it's just that I haven't played them in a while, but it feels more difficult. I really enjoy this one. I think it'd be a good pickup for, again, people that are into the retro style but want a modern flair to it. This is a good one. Again, you could pick this one up. I think this one maxes out at around somewhere around $10-15, and when it's not on sale. So I would recommend it. Highly recommend that one. And finally, looks like the last one I picked up this week was Civilization 6. I haven't played a lot of this one yet. From what I have played, there are a lot of differences between it and Civ 5 that I'm still kind of learning. So, I mean, at this point, I still lean toward liking Civilization 5 more. Again, for those who don't know, Civilization is it's a turn-based strategy game. Basically, you choose a world civilization and start from its beginnings up to the age of space exploration, and you can progress scientifically, diplomatically, and I mean, there's different ways you can win the game. Scientifically, militaristically, it's a pretty in-depth game. So I mean, there's not a quick overview of it would not serve the game justice. So, but anyway, I digress. I mean, Civ 5, the mechanics of it, I was so used to. Getting used to a new game is where it's going to be a little bit difficult. I'm going to have to kind of dedicate more time to it to see how I feel about it. I mean, for what I have played of it, I don't hate it by any means, but like I said, I just get so used to playing. I mean, I played Civ 6 for the Civ 5 for the last 6 years. So I mean, I've played it long enough to be pretty used to it. So, but yeah, those are some games that I picked up on the Steam sale, and I would recommend any of them. Civ 6 was running at 50% off at almost $29.99. I don't know. I would feel like I didn't get what I needed out of it if I paid full price. I wouldn't pay $60 for this game. I would wait until expansion packs and stuff come out. Usually they start dropping the price of the base game by then. So that's what I would recommend. But the others, I would recommend Cuphead or Hollow Knight at full price. If you can get them on sale, good on you, do it. But those are the two shining ones out of the bunch here. The D&D ones, it was a quick, it was a cheap grab. I got it for less than $5. So I mean, it was fun, and it'd be a good one to stream. So that's why I picked it up. But those are my thoughts on those games. All right, so moving on to my last topic. I just thought it would be fun to kind of make a top 3 list from the movies that came out in 2017 that I've seen so far. And granted, this is a pretty short list. I think there was maybe a grand total of 8 2017 releases that I've seen, and some of the bigger releases I haven't even gotten a chance to see yet. I know I'm horrible about this, but coming in at number 3, and I actually just recently watched this, but after looking at all the movies I saw, I thought, you know what, this belongs in the top 3, and I chose Logan. I don't think it's my favorite X-Men movie. It's definitely my favorite Wolverine solo film. That's for sure. But as far as overall, I don't think it tops Days of Future Past. And maybe sits about equal with X-Men First Class. Um, I I really like this film. It took a whole different approach. Honestly, I don't I don't think there was a moment in that movie where I really felt like I was watching a superhero film, and that's okay. Um, some people would think, well, that's dumb. You're watching a superhero film. Why would you not? But this, it had a very, I can't even really explain it. It was um somber, very it was just a depressing almost feeling of a movie. Definitely not a feel good movie. Um, I think that they moved to a R rating with this one too. Um, and it was a little shocking at first, just because I mean the content that was in it as opposed to other X-Men films, and it took me a little bit to get used to that. But once you got that over that hump pretty quick, um, it actually made sense, especially with Wolverine and Logan's character, um, and also the fact that I mean, guys got adamantium claws. They're I mean, there could be a little bit more depiction of the violence that occurs with that, and I get it. Um, I thought it was a good approach. I think it kind of was interesting to see what kind of happened to the mutants and everything. Oh, after in the later years, um, and the fates of these characters. Um, if you really ask my opinion, I think it could very well. I mean, it being the last film that they've had since now Disney's taking it over, I feel like that would be a good point to just say that this is the end of the X-Men franchise and we could reboot, but I don't know. But that's a whole different subject. Anyway, moving on to number two. My number two was, again, recently watched, Star Wars The Last Jedi. I gave my kind of thoughts on this movie already. If I would have put this on my list right after watching it, it probably would have been lower. But again, after second thought and further analyzing the content of the film and everything, I kind of have given it a better score than I originally did. And I do look forward to what's going to happen with the franchise in the future and kind of what they've opened the gate to be able to do with this film. So, I mean, I think it'll be a welcome change with the things that are going to happen. If you want to know more of my thoughts on The Last Jedi, I actually revealed those in my last episode, which will be, I can probably, I'll put the link in the show notes. And moving on to number one. Number one, I'm giving to Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, I know people are probably like thinking, well, man, he must have seen some terrible films if he's putting that at the top of his list. But I would say Spider-Man Homecoming was actually a fairly good film. I really like the direction that they've taken with Peter Parker. I think that this is probably the best portrayal of the character, in my opinion, that we've gotten. Overall films in the Spider-Man franchise, I'd say it sits maybe slightly above Spider-Man 2, which was my favorite before this. But I think that it was really, it's nice that we've finally got him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. and I think that they've really fit him in there well without having to redo his origin story or anything like that, which is really nice. I think that putting Iron Man in there to kind of tie him in with the MCU and keep him glued to it was good. I think that Michael Keaton did a fairly decent job as a villain. And there were some interesting twists in there and stuff that happened in the film. And I thought it was an overall really good movie. I would say it's my favorite comic book film of the year. I guess a couple of honorable mentions in this list. Guardians Volume 2 would probably have sat at like number 4 for me. I liked Guardians Volume 2. There was some, it's funny. I mean, that's how the Guardians films are. But if you wanted to get my opinion as far as like the overall story of the film, I felt like nothing happened in that film. I felt like they were on the run from some people. They ended up crashing on or getting onto this planet and being found by Quill's father, who is a planet, and they had to conflict with that. And that was really about it. Not a whole lot that kind of furthered the MCU storyline or anything like that. And, it, other than like, some of the, there was some character building and stuff that happened in there and everything, but I really felt like it was just a movie where a whole lot of nothing happened. And that's fine. I mean, it was still a fun movie. And I would say, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Now I know you got plenty of people that probably would chastise me for putting that on a list, but I think it probably would sit at number 5. I did really enjoy that one too. I like the Pirates of the Caribbean films. I know that a lot of people think that anything other than the first one is garbage. But I enjoy a little garbage every once in a while. So, whatever we got to do, right? But yeah, those were my top 3 films of this year. We're going to be cutting it, I guess, a little bit short this week. Not a whole lot to kind of elaborate on, but that's okay. Thank you for listening, those that have in the past, those that are this time. And I appreciate any feedback that you guys have for me. You could, leave comments, like the video, dislike the video, and just tell me why. And, just if you haven't thrown me a subscription or a like on the Facebook page, I really appreciate that as well. Thanks again for following me, guys, and I will catch everybody on the next episode. HeiseNerd, out.